Glad to be here today. Man, it really is an honor to be able to be here and share the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Man, it's just a pleasure for Manny to be able to ask me to come up here and be able to give the word while he steps out and enjoys his family. But man, if this is your first time here, I just want to say good morning for those that maybe it's their first time visitor. We're glad that you're here to be able to worship with us, to be able to hear God's word. Man, it really makes me happy to be able to have y'all here. And for those that may not know me, my name is Steve. I'm actually the youth pastor here at our church. Man, I've been able to be our youth pastor here for now going into year 6, and man, it's been the biggest blessing in my life. It really has. For me, I would have never thought I would be in this position, but I would never change it for nothing. Man, it's been the best. But as we go into our sermon today of Follow Me and what that looks like, see, for the last couple of weeks, we've been in a series called Follow Me. And the whole heart behind this series has been learning what it actually means to follow Jesus. Not just know about him, not just be around him, but truly follow him daily. What does that look like? To follow Jesus daily. Because if we're honest today, church, there's a difference between hearing the word and obeying the word. And I want to say that again. There's a difference between hearing the word and obeying the word. See, in week 1, Pastor Manny showed us how Jesus constantly called people with the same invitation, and that was, follow me. See, in Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 through 19, Matthew chapter 9, verse 9, and John chapter 1, verse 43, Jesus wasn't asking people to casually admire him from a distance. He was calling them to fully follow him, and he's doing the same today. Y'all are probably going to hear me repeat a lot of stuff today, but I want y'all to know I'm going to, because, man, it's too good not to. I think it's things that we can really take in. But again, I want you guys to fully understand, Jesus wasn't asking people to casually admire him from a distance. He was calling them to fully follow him. Which brings me to one of my lines that really hit me hard during Pastor Manny's week 1 sermon. And that was that delayed obedience is still disobedience. Let me say that again. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. Because a lot of us hear God clearly. We do. But we just keep postponing surrender. And I'm going to say that again. See, a lot of us hear God clearly. We do. We hear him, whether it's on Sunday or whatever. But for some reason, we just keep postponing surrender. We wait. God's like, hey, I need you to do something now. And you're like, oh, I'll get to it. And getting to it never really happens. Or we go through our mess, and then we wonder why, and then God's like, but I've been telling you to give me that. Surrender, follow me. Then we go into week 2, and Pastor Manny went into Luke chapter 9, verse 23 to 26, where Jesus says to deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow him. Think of that, daily, that word. Meaning following Jesus was never meant to be a one-time emotional moment. It's a lifestyle of surrender. I want you guys to really think about that. But here's the thing. Why don't most of us live that lifestyle of surrender? Why is it? Why is it so hard for us? And it's kind of like Pastor Manny said last week. We don't struggle with knowing Jesus. But we struggle with is giving him full access and control over our lives. That's the hard part that we struggle with. We know him. You know, we've accepted him. We know he's died on the cross. But yet, we struggle with giving him full access to our whole lives and control over everything. Because if we're honest, we want to hold on to things. We want to control things. We want things to go our way or no other way. Because here's the thing I want y'all to know. Trusting God, I know it sounds good, but it's different until his way stretches us, until it challenges us, until it makes us uncomfortable. And here's the thing again, because denying ourselves isn't losing our lives. It's finally becoming who God created you to be. I want you guys to fully understand that. When we deny ourselves, we're not losing our lives, but it's finally a moment for us to be who God has called us to be and created us to be. And that all that leads perfectly to where we are today. Because again, everybody loves the idea of following Jesus until following him starts costing us something. Until it means surrendering pride. Until it means surrendering control, addictions, comfort, old habits, old versions of ourselves. That's when it starts getting hard. that's where it really starts costing us something. And I think here's a truth that a lot of us get lost in, and that's even including me sometimes. But we're okay with saying Jesus is Lord, but we're never truly let him become Lord over every area of our lives. And I think that's where we mess up. We're okay with him being Lord, but we never let him be Lord over everything in our lives. We're okay with receiving salvation that is free to us, even though we know Jesus paid a heavy price for it. But the part we struggle with is fully surrendering everything that competes with him. And I mean that, everything that competes with him. See, following Jesus will cost you something. That we know. But here's the thing. But not surrendering to him will eventually cost you more. Think about that. Following Jesus will cost you something. It will. But not fully surrendering to him will eventually cost you more. Think about that. And I know that's the hardest part. I know it is. I know sometimes the hardest part of surrendering isn't always just what God asks us to give up. It's not. It's trusting that what he has for us is greater than what we're holding on to. And that's what we have to fully understand. We think that's the hardest part, giving this up or giving that up, but no. Really, it's trusting him and knowing that when we give these things up and these things that we're holding on to, that his plans are greater for us, that they're better, that he has a purpose for our lives. Man, and again, if we're being honest, I know that's hard for a lot of us. And now, before we go any further, I kind of want to just, you guys to think for a moment here, real quick. I want you guys to just wonder, have y'all ever told somebody that you trust them, but not really trust them? Anybody ever been there? And I don't even mean with God, I just mean in general. Have you ever told somebody you trust them, but not really trust them? Kind of like Pastor Manny spoke about last week, when he talked about how his dad would tell him, take out the trash. But in reality, he didn't really trust Manny to do it. Because in his mind, he thought, man, he was like, I already know he's not going to. Usually he doesn't do it. He takes forever. I know he can't, or whatever it is, excuses he might have. And I get it. Because if we're honest, if I'm honest, I'm the same way sometimes. And sometimes I'm like that with my wife. And sometimes I'm like that with my wife when it comes to her driving. A lot of people laugh. But before you laugh, I want you guys to know I did speak to her. I did let her know I was going to say this, all right? I'm brave, but I'm not dumb, okay? Let me just say that. But let me get back to my story, see? And really, honestly, before I do, I just want to ask this. Fellas, it's okay. We're in church. You can tell the truth. Don't lie, all right? You ain't got to lie. But raise your hand if you can say your wife is a great, amazing driver. Got one person. Freddie, I know Amber scares you, so I'll take that as a, It's not too many, and I get it. Ladies, I'm sorry. You had your Mother's Day last week, but let's bring it back to reality a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. See, here's the thing. When it comes to my wife's driving, I'll get in the passenger seat. And I guess you can say I'm willing to go on this journey with her. But trusting her, that's different. I'm not going to lie. It really is. And here's the thing. Every 5 seconds, I'm in the passenger seat, and I'm stomping this imaginary brake. I really am. Like, I'm grabbing onto handles. I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I am. And I'm always, watching, make sure, no car is coming. My life depends on it. We could be at a stop sign, and I'm still, making sure. I'm worried. And I'm like, babe, watch out. Red light. And she gets mad. She really does. She asked me, she's like, you don't trust my driving? I'm like, I love you. I do. But trusting you with my life, I don't know, I don't know about this. And I know you guys are probably like, man, he's over-exaggerating. Nah, I know it's not that, but it is. And here's the funny thing. I'm going to share a story with you guys. When me and Daisy first started dating, I forgot where we met up, but I was in my car. She was in hers. She had this little small, red Nissan Frontier. And we were going, I think, coming back to Kilgore, we're going to Walmart, because in Kilgore, that's the only thing to do, Walmart. So we were going to Walmart, and if Kilgore, you can either go straight when you first get into Kilgore, or you can take a right there on Longview Street, by the skating ring. She's from Spring Hill, so I guess she don't really know too much. So she just went straight, and I turned. And I guess in her rearview mirror, she was like, he turned. So guess what she decided to do? She turned, but there was no road there. And y'all might know, like I said, if you're in Kilgore, you can picture this. She turned, and it's like a Mexican restaurant there, and she ended up turning, and she hit this ditch. And guys, I don't know how this happened, but I see it from the corner of my eyes. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm already on Longview Street. And next thing you know, I see like her hit the ditch, and I don't know how. I guess her vehicle's little, maybe she floored it. I couldn't tell you. But all I see is this vehicle like flying in the air. And I'm not lying. I'm driving and I'm like, is that Van Diesel? Like, I didn't know what was going on. And I don't know if she yelled for family, because if y'all seen the Fast and the Furious, apparently when you say for family, you could defy all odds, everything. I seen Van Diesel like fly out of a car to a bridge and catch a woman like he's Superman. Hey, I guess when it's for family, you can do anything. But she flies and I'm just like, oh my God. And she lands in front of me. That's the bad part. Like, we're on this road and she's in front of me. Like, how she did that, I have no idea. And I'm like, oh my God. So anyways, long story short, we just like pull over to the side. And I get out of my car and I run her and I hold her and I hug her. I'm like, you almost died, you know? Like, this is wild. She probably, I don't know, she's probably done that many times. I couldn't tell you. She probably was just like a normal Monday. I couldn't tell you. But I remember people probably looking at us like, why do you see people just hugging on the side of the road? But if they knew what I saw, they would have understood. But yes, my wife's driving can be a little bit crazy. It can. So again, I sometimes, I'll go with her, but I don't fully trust her. And you guys can understand. So pray for me, please. Pray for me. But here's the thing. We do the same with God. Sometimes we really don't trust him. It's true. A lot of us struggle with following Jesus. We struggle with fully surrendering to him. Because there's a difference between inviting Jesus into your life and handing him control of it. There's a difference. There's a difference between inviting Jesus into your life and handing him control of it. A lot of people are willing to follow Jesus, but they don't fully trust him with their lives, or at least not every part of it, if we're honest. We like to give God certain things while still holding on to other things. We'll give him our Sundays, but not our habits. We give him our worship, but not our control. We give him the part of our lives that feels safe to surrender, while still holding on tightly to things that we think we can manage on our own. But the problem with the partial surrender, it's that it always produces partial transformation. I want you guys to understand that. And here's the thing, Jesus never came to just improve part of our lives. He didn't. He came to completely transform your life, all of it, every single thing. And that's where the tension comes in for a lot of people. Because again, we love the idea of salvation. We love grace. We love forgiveness, mercy, knowing heaven is real. We love the idea that salvation is free to us. But sometimes we forget it was never cheap. It wasn't. It cost Jesus everything. And because it cost him everything, following him would eventually require us to surrender everything too. Not because he's trying to take our lives from us, because again, he's trying to give us real life. And here's the question for today. How many of us are willing to count the cost? Ask yourself that. How many of us today are willing to count the cost? That brings me to my scripture for today. And we're going to be in Luke chapter 14, verse 25 to 33. It should be behind me right here. It says, now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned and said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate their own father, mother, wife, children, brothers, and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Think about that. He says, whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you desire to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build and was not able to finish. Then it goes on and says, or what king going out to encounter another king in war will not sit down first and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet great ways off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he cannot be my disciple. Think about that. I know it's a lot. You're probably like, whoa. The dude started off talking about hating your mom and your brother and your dad. Like, it's crazy. But I want you guys to fully understand this. In this passage, Jesus gives two different examples. The first one, he talks about a man building a tower who sits down first to calculate the cost before he starts. Think about that. Because nobody wants to begin something they can't finish. So before he does this, he thinks about it. He counts the cost. He figures out. And then he talks about a king who prepares for war, who first stops to consider if he's truly even ready for this war. Think about that. If he's ready for the battle ahead. See, both examples point the same truth. Jesus wanted people to understand that following him was never meant to be impulsive. It wasn't. Emotional or temporary. He was teaching that real discipleship requires commitment, surrender, and a willingness to keep following even when it becomes difficult. And it will. And again, I love how he starts off this passage, because there's going to be times where we're trying to go where God's calling us to go. And there's going to be people in our lives that's family, that's close to us, that's not going to understand. And sometimes we're going to also have to maybe go away from those relationships. And even like I said, we got to die to ourselves, deny ourselves, and even also where we're trying to go so we can be able to be where God is calling us to be. And what I really want y'all to understand about this again is Jesus never tricked people into following him. He never did. He never tricked people into following him. He never watered down discipleship. He never watered it down. Which is why Jesus told the large crowd, before you follow me, make sure you understand what it's going to cost. Make sure you understand what it's going to cost. Because he wanted them to know it's going to be hard. Don't mean he's not going to be there, because he will. He will be there for you. But he wants you to really understand what it's going to cost. To sit down first, count the cost. Because he never wanted people again to follow him emotionally for a moment and then walk away the second life got hard. He didn't want that. And here's the thing, most people don't walk away from Jesus because they hate him. They don't. They walk away because they never truly counted what it meant to follow him. They never did. And I think we created a version of Christianity where people want Jesus as the Savior, but not Lord, if we're honest. We want the promise without the process. We want resurrection without death to self. Think about that. We want resurrection without death to self. Like, how is something new going to be born if we haven't killed the old us? Think about that. How is that supposed to happen? That's where we have to be willing to be like, okay, God, I'm going to give it all to you. I'm going to die to self, those things that I've been holding on to. We want God to bless our lives, but still holding on to the very things that are destroying it. And we know what it is, and yet we still hold on to it. But Jesus never hid the cost. Again, he looked at the crowd and said, count the cost first. Because he knew a half-surrendered life eventually collapses under pressure. Think about that. He knew a half-surrendered life would eventually collapse under pressure. I don't know why I keep doing this Obama thing, but y'all work with me. And here's the truth. Here's the truth that all you guys, I think, need to hear, and even me. You don't avoid the cost by avoiding God. You don't. You do not avoid the cost by avoiding God. That's what we think sometimes. You just choose a different bill to pay. Because sin will always take more than it promised and cost more than you planned. Think about that. You don't avoid God. You don't avoid the cost by just avoiding God. You don't think you'll get away with things just because, you know what, I'm not going to listen. I'm just going to do me and everything will be fine. No. You're just going to choose a different bill to pay. A way more expensive one. Kind of like the steak that Brady's paying for this family today in the morning. But honestly, yes, I want you guys to fully understand that. Because sin will always take more than it promised. And it will cost you more than you planned. It takes peace. Think about that. It takes purpose. It takes your marriage, years, joy, moments with your kids that you will never get back. And most people don't lose everything overnight. They lose it one compromise at a time. Think about that. One secret at a time. One moment of drifting at a time. Until one day we wake up surrounded by things that we prayed for, but too empty to enjoy them because they never fully surrendered to God. Think about that. But here's the thing. Jesus didn't die for us to just be informed. Think about that. He died so we could be transformed. All right? And that leads us today into Romans chapter 12, verse 1 through 2. It says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Think about that. He says, present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. And then he goes on, he says right here, he says, do not be conformed to this world. Think about that. He's telling you what you should do, how to present yourself to the Lord, to be acceptable, to spiritually worship him. And then he says, do not be conformed to this world. Do not fall to the things in this world. Do not be like other people, but live out the calling he has for your life. He says, and then he says, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Think about that. That by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So I say this again, and I want you guys to fully understand this. See, too many people, they read the word just to be informed. A lot of us, we just read the Bible just to be informed. Hopefully it helps us through what we're going through, and then we're good. But we mess up when we do that. Here's what you guys need to fully understand. When God actually gave us his word, it wasn't just to be informed, but it was to be transformed. When we read our word, we should read it to be transformed, to be who God is calling us to be, this renewing of our mind. And that's why it says in Romans 12, 1 through 2, it says to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. And I want you guys to notice this. Paul doesn't just say occasionally surrender. He doesn't. He says become a living sacrifice. Living means continually. Every season, God asks for another level of surrender, another level of trust, another level of obedience. And what I've learned is every season, God asks for a different level of trust. Why? Because every season of surrender is preparing you for the next thing that he wants to do in your life. I want you guys to understand that. And I'm going to share a story with you guys. And a lot of y'all maybe have heard this. I know the youth have. But I sometimes don't say it sound like a broken record, but I say it because this is what God has been done in my life. And I know he's done so much amazing more things in y'all's lives. But see, I had to learn the same lesson for myself, how to surrender, how to fully trust him, how to actually follow him. See, about 13 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I do. They found it a little late. And I remember the doctors telling us that morning that she only had a few months to live. And for me, it was one of the most devastating moments in my life, especially because I was new to my faith, and one, because I was trying to rekindle this relationship with my mom. And here's the thing. We tried treatments and chemo, hoping something would work. But as the treatments continued, so did the bills. And this is where we got to a point where we were literally selling everything we had just to afford it. To make things worse, my stepdad ended up getting deported. And suddenly the weight of the world just felt like it was crashing down on me. And I felt like I had to be the man of the house. I felt responsible to provide and figure everything out. At the time I was working in the oil field, and the money was good. But it probably wasn't the best environment for a young man like me, one that was trying to grow in the Lord. But the more I sought God, the more he started putting new desires in my heart. And one of those desires was for me to go back to school and just to be able to figure out my calling. And honestly, it was kind of different because if y'all know me, I was not really good at school at all. But God was just putting these new things in my heart. And I remember just him telling me and calling me and be like, hey, God called me to trust him enough to go back to school. But honestly, I didn't understand it. I didn't. In my mind, I couldn't leave. I had to take care of my mom. I had to take care of my family. We had other things to worry about. And where God was calling me to be in his plans was not nowhere in my plans. But I remember one morning I was reading the word. I felt God speak to me. And it's crazy, but I remember him saying, and it caught me off guard. He was like, you don't trust me. And I was like, what? Who said that? You know, looking around. Thought maybe my sister was like hiding in my closet or something. I don't know. It was just weird. But it really did catch me off guard. And I remember him saying, like, you don't trust me. And I remember being like, how? Like, I gave you my life. I stopped doing all these dumb things I used to do. You know, I'm not hanging around with these certain people. I'm praying. I'm reading the Bible. I'm trying to figure these things out. And he hit me again with the, you don't trust me. And I remember at that point, I was kind of upset. I hit him with the Nacho Libre. I was like, you're crazy. You know, I was like, get that corn out of my face type of thing. But it was just like, but he really did. I heard him again. He was like, you really don't trust me. And this is where it threw me off. Because I felt the Lord say, if you trusted me, you would go to school and know I would take care of your mom. If you trusted me, you know you could go to school, continue to grow in me, and know that everything will be all right. And guys, he did. See, a week before school started, I had to wait a semester and all that stuff for the new semester to start. A week before school started, man, my mom was cancer-free. And I know to this day it was all God. But here's the thing. And I have to be honest. I think at the time, I thought my surrender was just about college. I thought me surrendering was just, that's all it was. I thought it was God simply asking me to trust him to get a degree. But now that I look back, I realized God was doing something more and much bigger than what I could see. See, in that moment, God was giving me peace and freedom to step into this new season. Giving me peace to be okay with whatever happened. Because I knew at the end of the day, whether my mom made it through or not, she was going to be in a better place. God was giving me that type of peace for this new season, regardless of what was ahead. And little did I know that season was only the beginning of what he had for me. Because while I was in college, I met my beautiful wife. And just like every season, marriage became another season of surrender. And I'll tell you this, and a lot of you guys know this, but marriage will teach you real fast that selfishness doesn't work. It doesn't. See, marriage required me to die to myself in areas I didn't even know were still alive. And God kept using each season to expose something else in me that I still needed to surrender. And now becoming a dad, it hit me differently than ever before. You were supposed to wait on that picture. I'm going to cry now. Let me hold it in. Oh, man. And now I'm a dad. Man, it's hit me harder than ever before. God, Tyler, got me crying now. Because, man, now this is not just about me anymore. It's not. Now I think about the kind of father I'm becoming, the kind of husband I'm becoming, the example my son will follow by watching my life. And I started realizing there are still things in me that God has been trying to deal with. Things I keep saying no to. Things I kept holding on to. Things I thought only affected me. But like I said, but now I realize God wasn't just trying to remove those things for me. He was making sure my wife and my son never had to carry them. Think about that. Because what I refuse to surrender today could only become what I regret tomorrow. Think about that. Guys, what we refuse to surrender today is going to be the one thing that we later on will regret tomorrow. See, because my pride, it could cost my marriage. My distractions could cost moments with my son I'll never get back. My compromise could affect the people I love the most. And that's why surrender matters, guys. Because what God asks from you in one season may actually be preparing generations ahead of you. I want you to think about that. What God is asking from you right now in this season is actually preparing generations from now. Your grandchildren, your kids, whatever. Many people in your life, whoever it may be. That person you've been pouring into, that person that you want better for, whether it's a niece or a nephew, God is preparing all that right now as you continue to surrender and give him your life. And we're going to do something a little different. So if we can get some help today from my helpers today, I need some help. So if y'all can come up here real fast. If y'all don't mind, just make it like a little line going that way. Set this mic down real quick. And so what we're going to do today, I'm going to give the youth some of these signs, and I want you guys to really think about this. These are some things that a lot of us are probably dealing with, struggling, holding on to. But it hits different when, what if this thing that you've been carrying, maybe it's your son that has to carry it. Maybe it's your daughter. Maybe it's somebody you love, like your niece or your nephew, your wife. Just imagine these things that you can't surrender that might end up having somebody else have to carry. I want you guys to really think about this. Brady, come on, man. What? I didn't know he did that. I'm sorry, guys. But hey, he's not lying. Just kidding. You can turn it around, Brady. See? Disobedient. Golly. But guys, man, as much as we can laugh, man, I want you guys to really think about this. As we sit up here and we look at these words, like, think about this. And some of you, I know right now the Lord's speaking to you. And these are a lot of things we've been holding on to. And we don't realize the weight that it carries. And the things that our kids might have to carry. Or our grandchildren, or our families. Just want you to think about that. The things that we hold on to, whether it's shame, alcohol, drugs, lust, disobedience, fear, anger, pride. And it might be something up here that I maybe didn't put, but you know what it is. You know those things that the Lord's been calling you to give up for him? The control. And for some of us, it's hard. Man, I know some of us think these are just private battles. But what if they're not? What if the things that you won't surrender today becomes a thing that your children have to fight tomorrow? What if your son carries your anger? What if your daughter carries your insecurities? What if your grandchildren battle the addictions that started because nobody surrendered and let God heal them? Think about that. Because children just don't listen to what we say. They often inherit what we constantly live. And this morning, I need somebody to understand this. Your surrender is bigger than what you think it is. It is. Your obedience is bigger than what you think it is. The small thing God is asking from you right now may not change your life in this moment right now, right away. But I'm telling you, it may change generations after you. And you can start that today. You can be the difference. Because there's a lot of us, and I get it. Like I said, we love Jesus. But here's the reality. If you talk crazy to your wife more than you actually speak life into her, you might need to really check yourself. If you worship the bottle more than you do your Lord, you might really have to check yourself. If you're still trying to control everything instead of giving it to God, you might really have to check yourself. If you're an OU fan, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Justin. But, man, honestly, guys. And that's why I think Jesus in Luke 14:13, he was telling us to give him everything. Not because he's trying to take everything from us, but because he's trying to protect us what matters most. He's not trying to take away things from us. He's trying to protect what matters most. And God is not asking you to surrender things to punish you. I want you guys to fully understand that. He's asking you to surrender things so it can stop having power over you. And following Jesus costs everything, because real discipleship requires change, guys. I want you to understand that. Real discipleship requires change. And I got something to say to a lot of these fellas, man. I know sometimes we hear the scripture and it's like, it says, wives, bow down to your husbands, pretty much. I can't think how it goes right now. Surrender to your husbands. All right, I know a lot of y'all were like, whoa, but surrender to your husbands. But here's the thing. I know we always want to throw that, but here's the thing. How can your wife surrender to you when she doesn't see you surrendering to God? I really want to say that. Think about that. Think about that. How can we ask our kids to surrender to these things and start listening when they don't even see us listening to the Lord? That's what we have to fully understand. These things that have power over us. And I want you guys, following Jesus, again, I'm going to keep saying this. It costs everything. And it requires real discipleship. It requires real change. You can't truly follow Jesus and remain the same person forever. It doesn't work like that, and you can't. It's not going to work. No matter what you try to do to get around it, you can't. You can't truly follow Jesus and remain the same person. There has to come a moment where your habits change, your mindset changes, your priority changes, your response changes. Because following Jesus is not just saying you believe in him, it's allowing him to transform you. Can we give them a round of applause real quick? Okay. You guys go. Thank you, guys. Y'all can have a seat. Brady, good job. And Tyler, if you can put the picture of my of my wife real quick. They were going to be here, but Elijah was a little cranky this morning, so this is a lot easier. Man. When I sit up here, man, I think of these moments and just my wife and everything. Man, I wouldn't have it any other way. Because I can tell you right now, in my family, we don't have many people that are married. Many relationships that are still going. Many people who are just living the best life. What I mean by best life, not like I have everything, but just like pursuing the Lord and living the life that he's calling us to be. But here's the thing, again, like I was telling you, every season is going to constantly ask you to surrender and prepare you for the next thing ahead. And when I think about it, and I know it, this is what God was building the whole time. My family, my son. Sorry, everyone. Moments I prayed for, but I didn't even realize God was preparing me for years ago. And I understand that every season of surrender, every season of trust, every act of obedience was preparing me to protect this right here. The surrender didn't always make sense in the season I was in. But now I realize God was building something much bigger than what I could see. It didn't. At the moment, I didn't know why he was telling me to stop doing this or stop doing that, or I need to let go of these things. But now I see why, because he was protecting what he was trying to do in my life. I see God was building something much bigger. And I want you guys to understand, when I gave God everything, and when we give God everything, we're not losing our lives, and I didn't lose mine. I'm trusting him with it. I'm trusting him with my marriage. I'm trusting him with my home. I'm trusting him with the kind of father I become. Because following Jesus is going to cost me everything. But everything I give him is protecting everything I love. And that's where I want you guys to fully understand. When are we going to stop doing our own thing? And actually let God continue to grow us and mold us and bless our lives? We're going to stop going through the chaos and wondering why we're going through when God's like, I've been telling you these things that you have to let go of. I'm trying to give you peace. I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to give you purpose. When are we going to stop saying, Lord, I love you, invite you into my life, but still continue to live something else? When there's many people who we could be pouring into, being a light to, family members, whatever. And we see the struggles. We see the generational curses that we've grown up in. And sometimes they just look very familiar and okay, but we know. When are we going to say, God, I'll follow you, when he says, follow me? When are we going to count the cost? So as the worship team comes up here today, I want you guys to understand something this morning. I really do, okay? This morning isn't about guilt. It's not. This isn't about shame. Because deep down, some of you already know what God has been asking for. You know the habits. You know the compromise. You know the anger. You know the addictions. You know the things you keep trying to hold on to while still asking God to transform your life. But maybe God brought you here this morning. I want you to hear this. Maybe God brought you here this morning. I know he did. Because he's trying to stop something before it reaches your family. He brought you here this morning because he's trying to stop something before it reaches your family, before it reaches your children, before it becomes another generational cycle. Think about that. Man, so the question this morning is not whether surrender costs you something. The question is, what is it costing you not to surrender? Think about that. That's my question for you today. It's not whether surrender will cost you something, but what does it cost you to not surrender? Because you're going to pay the price either way. So if this morning you're saying, God, I'm done. I'm done giving you part of me. I want to give you everything. I want you to step out, and I want you this morning really to step out and come to this altar. I know it's going to be hard. I know it is. But today's the day, as you already make that move, God's going to already be moving. This is the day that you can help break those generational curses. I want you to step out and come to this altar. Don't overthink it. Because I get it. Sometimes it's hard. What people might think or judge, but we're all a mess. I'm a mess. But that's why I need my Lord and Savior. So don't overthink it. Don't wait on somebody else. This is your moment. Because what if your obedience today becomes someone else's freedom tomorrow? Think about that. What if your obedience today becomes someone else's freedom tomorrow? Let's pray. Dear Lord, I just thank you. Man, I thank you because you're good. I thank you because you're great. Jesus, this morning we surrender. Not just part of us, but everything. God, expose the thing in us that we're holding on to. The pride, the anger, the addictions, the compromise, the control, the bitterness, the lust, whatever has been competing with you, we lay it down this morning. Father, teach us to trust you fully in every season of our lives. Even when we don't understand what you've been building yet. God, let our obedience not only change us, but let it impact generations after us. Heal families, Lord. Break addictions. Restore marriages right now. Set people free today. And help us become the husbands, the wives, the fathers, the mothers, the leaders, the disciples you call us to be. Jesus, thank you that salvation was free to us, even though it cost you everything. And today, we choose to fully follow you. In Jesus' name, amen.